Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today, I thought it would be fun to go through some of my most surprising products that I discovered in 2021, both in a bad way and a good way. What that basically means is I have some products here that I had an expectation for, whether that was a positive or a negative expectation. And in fact, I was surprised because it ended up being the opposite of what I expected. I would love to hear if any of you have had a similar experience with any of the products that I'm going to be talking about today, or if you have other products that you also had a certain set of expectations for and it completely just defied it all. If you do enjoy today's video, definitely hit the thumbs up button. And if you are not yet subscribed and want to see more videos from me, then hit the subscribe button. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Let's get right into it. So when I was trying to think of what were the products that actually surprised me in 2021, the very first product that really came to mind was the KVD Good Apple Skin Perfecting Foundation Balm. At one point, this foundation was so hyped up. It was basically the only foundation that I was able to see, especially on like TikTok. Everybody was talking about how full coverage it was, but also how hydrating it was. And there was just a lot of discussion surrounding this product. And I didn't have any interest in trying it out, if I'm being completely honest, because I really just had the assumption that this just would not work for my skin at all. My experience with balmy full coverage foundations have just never been good. I have very dry skin, and those formulas typically make my skin look its worst. Even if it is more hydrating, because I find a lot of them are on the thicker side, it just makes my skin look terrible. It accentuates all of my dry patches. It looks super heavy, and it's just not what I like, especially being somebody who does prefer more of like a light coverage, lightweight foundation. When it does come to more full coverage, my expectations are very, very high, and I'm very picky with what I actually like to see on my skin. Winnie Simmons is actually the person who completely made me rethink my initial assumption on this foundation, because she also has very dry skin and she was just raving and raving and raving about it. So I figured I had to try it. And so I did. And she was right. It's really awesome. So my expectation of this being super full coverage was bang on. This is definitely a very full coverage foundation. But what I didn't realize was that the amount of product that you actually needed to apply was like teeny tiny, pea-sized amount in order to cover your entire face. And you get flawless coverage by using a very small amount of product, which typically translates to a more lightweight feel. And so this did not actually feel heavy, it didn't look heavy, it didn't feel like sticky or anything, which I also thought would be the case, especially because this is more of like a balmy foundation. It instead just made my skin look really nice and perfected. It was definitely very hydrating, and it lasted also so nicely throughout the day. It just completely exceeded all of my initial assumptions on this product. I would say the key to this product though is a small amount really does go a long way. I think where you could go wrong with this and where this could just not wear well or look too heavy is if you do apply too much. So that is my tip with this product. Just like one tap and you're good to go. It also spreads really nicely as well. It's not like a super thick and stiff formula. Just overall, it's actually quite a beautiful foundation, and I use the shade Light 012. Overall, this was probably one of the most surprising discoveries that I had of the year. Now, that was a very positive surprise. This was not so much a positive surprise. So this over here is the Rose Ink Concealer. I was so excited to try this, and I was honestly more confident than I think I've ever felt in a product without actually A, having heard too many reviews, and B, not ever trying the product and just completely assuming that this was going to be the concealer of my dreams, and then being completely disappointed when it in fact was not. So this was essentially marketed as a hydrating concealer, and I'm gonna be honest, anytime I hear hydrating concealer, foundation, really anything, I am on board. Strap me in, I'm in for the ride. So right away I was like, this is a hydrating concealer. It's gonna be just like my other hydrating concealers that I love, like my Josie Maran Vibrancy or my Kosas Revealer Concealer. And this was instead not that. I didn't find it was hydrating at all. I found it was the complete opposite. It was very, very, very heavy looking, and it really accentuated my dryness. It surprised me so much so that I was like, there's no way. Like, there's something going on maybe on my face. Maybe it's reacting weirdly to like my foundation or my skincare. no, that's not what happened. I tried it like 3-4 other times and I just continued to have just a bad experience with this concealer. And I'm still in denial about this because it still stays in my like favorite product vanity over here. For what reason, I don't know. Mostly because I love the Rose Ink cream blushes so much, and I also just love this packaging so much, which is a stupid reason to be blindly in love with something, but hey, it's just where I'm at. So those are my feelings on that. The NARS Radiant Creamy Color Corrector definitely was another big surprise for me this year. I keep saying this year, last year, 2021. I have never really been a big color correcting person. There's been moments in my makeup journey where I've dabbled and I've enjoyed, but it's just never been like a big staple in my routine. I just have never like really fallen in love with a color corrector. I just never really find that they're always necessary. And I find that they also sometimes will make your under eyes just look heavier than they need to be because you're layering more products than you may actually need. And a lot of the times I also find that just a full coverage concealer does the trick and I don't necessarily need a color corrector. Just my experience though. So when I first got this, I really just didn't think that I would fall in love with this. I didn't think it would become a staple in my routine, but it proved me wrong. We did indeed fall in love, mainly because this is fairly different than most other color correctors that I've tried. A lot of them are typically very like creamy and balmy and either too wet of a formula or too dry of a formula. And I find that no matter what, they're always very thick. This one, however, is so different. It's actually a very thin color corrector. So I never find that even when I do layer this, it doesn't add any heaviness, which is great. And I just find it to be kind of the perfect consistency and the perfect finish as well. Like I said, it's very thin and it also has a slightly hydrating formula, but when you blend it out, it kind of blends into like more of a soft matte finish, so it doesn't really slip and slide anywhere. I also really loved the shade of this. I use the shade Light in this range, and it's the perfect light peachy shade that isn't so unnaturally peach where it like will shine through and will almost ruin the color of your concealer. So this ended up becoming an actual staple in my everyday makeup bag, whereas I thought that I would just not care for this product at all. So totally exceeded my expectations and surprised me. Next, we have the Milk Makeup Sunshine Under Eye Tint. I am a really big fan of the Milk Makeup Sunshine Skin Tint. And so automatically, I shouldn't do this, but automatically I assume that if something is part of like the same line, especially if the original thing is something that I really enjoy, then there's no reason for me not to like it, right? Wrong. The reason why I really enjoy the Milk Makeup Skin Tint is because it's super natural looking. This doesn't really give a lot of coverage, but it still does even out the skin tone in a really nice, very natural way, and it just doesn't look heavy. It lasts really well. I just really like it. It's a great skin tint. And so I expected the concealer, which is a part of the same Sunshine range, to kind of do the same thing. I thought that this would be a very lightweight, but still natural looking, even light coverage concealer. And I was surprised because even though this is very lightweight and light coverage, unlike the Sunshine Skin Tint, this really does not work well with my dry skin. It accentuates it, it grabs onto it. I found that the coverage also wasn't super ideal. I do like a light coverage concealer, but the coverage in this was weirdly inconsistent. And I found it was just a very different experience that I had with the Sunshine Skin Tint, and this just taught me that I can't just assume that I'm going to like something just because it's part of the same lineup. I should know better. This is a great little surprise. This is the e.l.f. Putty Bronzer. When I first got these, I really didn't know what to expect. I was definitely very excited because I love creams, as you guys know, and I love trying different creams, especially from the drugstore. The thing with the drugstore is there's just not that many cream products available as of right now. And so whenever there is a new drugstore brand that comes out with a cream product, I'm always excited to try it out, but my expectations are typically like lower because, to be very frank, I haven't really tried many drugstore creams that have wowed me. The only ones that I can think of off the top of my head that I do really enjoy are the Quo ones, but you can only get those in Canada, and those are liquids, not creams. That being said, my expectations were fairly low before trying the e.l.f. Putty Bronzers, but let me tell you, I was so pleasantly surprised because this is by far the best cream bronzer that I've tried from the drugstore, and this is very similar to so many of the other higher end creams on the market, but obviously e.l.f. is incredibly affordable, and so you can get a really awesome cream cream bronzer at a really great price. I find it's the perfect balance between something that is more on the matte side and more on the glowy side. It kind of lands right in the middle. It's not too much of either. So it applies in a very creamy way, but it doesn't slip and slide around like something that may be a little bit too glowy. It's also like perfectly pigmented. It has some really nice pigment to it, as you can see, but it's also not over the top. And so it blends out and works into the skin very easily. So it's pretty foolproof, especially if you are more of a beginner. And the shade range in this lineup is really fantastic. I use this guy, which is called Tan Lines, and it's my perfect bronzer shade. This is honestly one of my favorite discoveries of 2021. I did kind of hit myself a little bit for not including this in my 2021 beauty roundup. I honestly completely forgot. If I had to redo it, this would definitely be in there. It's just a really awesome product. And if you are looking for an affordable cream bronzer, I would definitely highly recommend it. It surprised me a lot in the best way possible. Speaking of cream liquid blushes, this guy from Bite definitely surprised me. This is the Whipped blush. I was so excited when I heard that Bite was coming out with a cream liquid blush. I love pretty much everything that I've tried from them, and so my expectations were very, very high. This is what it looks like. You squeeze the blush out of this little thing. It comes out of this little spout. It looks very phallic, I know. We've established that before. And the formula is interesting. It's definitely a whipped formula, so they named it perfectly. And when you first start to blend it out, especially when you swatch it, you're like, ooh, this is so interesting. Feels like it almost melts immediately into your skin as you're blending it out. And it looks really pretty, especially when it's swatched. The problem that I have with this blush is that it is so inconsistent in the way that it applies. I find that it's very patchy. So whether I apply with my fingers or with a brush or with a sponge, it doesn't really matter. I found that I was always getting a patchy result, which I just really did not like. I also found that the shimmer in this shade in particular, I don't know what it's like in the other shades because I think this is one of the only ones that I have, but it's super chunky and I just don't find it's very flattering. So overall, I just don't like the formula of this, and I really thought that I would be obsessed, and I just wasn't. Another one that definitely surprised me is this tiny little guy. This is the Tarte HYDROCEALER, and I actually got this from Julia Adams. We did a video together where we bought each other a full face of makeup, and she got me this concealer, and I'm really glad that she did because I don't know if I would have ever picked it up otherwise. To be honest, I didn't really know what to expect when it came to this. I hadn't really heard anybody talk about it, because to me, if something was, you know, amazing and so good, you would hear a little bit of buzz around it, and I just didn't find that I really heard anybody really talk about it, so I didn't know what to expect. This really surprised me because it's actually quite a beautiful formula. I find it very similar to a lot of the very hydrating concealers that I use all the time that I really, really like. It has a really, really nice glowy finish to it, a beautiful like medium coverage. I just find this overall to be a very flattering concealer. The last complexion product that I want to talk about is this guy from L'Oreal. It's the Age Perfect Radiant Serum Foundation. I feel like this is actually pretty underrated. I really don't hear that many people talk about this. The Age Perfect line from L'Oreal isn't really marketed towards me. It's definitely marketed towards like an older demographic. And so it wasn't like a product that I would be naturally drawn towards when I would browse in the drugstore. I think it was actually my manager who told me that she really, really loved this. And so I went to go try it out. It has great coverage. It has a really nice glow to it. It's definitely very hydrating, and it just sits on the skin really, really nicely. I kind of find that it reminds me a little bit of the YSL Touche Eclat All-in-One Glow Foundation. It's a very similar vibe to me, especially if you do have dry skin. It's really great, and again, just really didn't expect it. It definitely surprised me with how beautiful it was, and my mom also really enjoys this product as well. I have a lip liner here from KKW Beauty. So my expectations were low for this lip liner specifically because everything else that I've tried from KKW Beauty has been very underwhelming. There's been pretty much nothing that I've like really, really, really loved. So naturally, I just didn't really think that the lip liner would be anything special. It is a very, very, very creamy and pigmented formula. As you can see, it glides on the skin really nicely. This one is in the shade Classic Kim, which is probably my favorite shade. I actually find that this is kind of similar to the old Makeup Forever I think they're called the Aqua Resist lip liners. It's a very similar formula in the way that it glides on and also the way that it wears. I really do like everything about this lip liner. I like the color, I like the way it applies, and I like the way that it wears. I find it's just, like I said, very long wearing, so just not what I expected because I haven't had any other luck with any other KKW beauty products. So next we have this guy from MAC. This is the MAC POWDERKISS Liquid Lip Color, the very first liquid lipstick that MAC released. I forget exactly what it was called, but it was their first liquid lipstick ever. I really disliked. It was one of the most drying liquid lipsticks I had ever tried, and I really just did not like the formula at all. I found that it was very unflattering on the lips, just everything about it just was not great. So when they came out with the POWDERKISS liquid lip colors, I really didn't think that it would be much different from that original formula, and let me tell you, I was surprised because this is totally not even in the same realm. This actually has become one of my favorite liquid lipsticks to wear. I do prefer more like a glossy or even like a satin matte finish, but sometimes I do like a flat matte, and when I do want a flat matte, I will often go towards the POWDERKISS liquid lip colors, because even though these give you a flat matte finish, they are not overly drying at all. They're actually pretty comfortable and they just wear really nicely. So from the original liquid lipstick formula that I've tried for MAC, this is like a complete 180. And that's it. Those are all of the products that surprised me the most in 2021. I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's video and found it kind of fun and entertaining. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on everything that I spoke about today. Hit the thumbs up button if you did enjoy today's video, and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.